Coming up today on Seahawks Forever, powered by BetUS, we are going to focus on the offensive line. First, the news that Sataoa Laumea, the sixth-round rookie out of Utah, is going to start at right guard in place of the injured Anthony Bradford instead of Christian Haynes, the third-round rookie. I'm going to tell you some reasons why this is bad news and also some reasons why this is good news. Wouldn't be Seahawks Forever if we didn't talk about the good. Which one outweighs the other? You be the judge. Also, the results of the poll I've been running all week. If you could take one Seahawk great from a list of 5 that I presented from the past and put them on this roster, which one would help this team the most? Your answer, your overwhelming answer, was not surprising. I expected it, but I'm going to tell you why you're wrong today on Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Head on over to BetUS and get the latest spread on the Jets and Seahawks tomorrow, as well as all the prop bets that they offer. And right now, you can get a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% on your second and third deposits, up to $2,000. Head on over to BetUS and enter the promo code YouTube150. Also, last chance to get in on this outstanding deal from Manscaped on their newest innovation, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. This thing has interchangeable heads, so you can get a smooth shave. You can leave some stubble if you like. It's cordless. It's waterproof. It's everything you want in an electric foil shaver. And right now, you can get it for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com using the promo code Seahawks. Get in on that deal now while it lasts. Also, while you're here, if you like this video, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share it, review it, rate it. If you're listening on audio, subscribe on whichever platform you prefer. All the other ways you can support the show are linked down in the description. So the surprising announcement yesterday from Mike McDonald that Sataoa Laumea was going to run out there with the starters tomorrow at MetLife Stadium against the New York Jets. We heard earlier in the week that this could be a possibility when it was announced that Anthony Bradford was going on injured reserve, and reporters started to ask Coach McDonald about how Christian Haynes looked in his first extensive action playing after Bradford exited the game against the Cardinals early last Sunday, and what he expects from him moving forward as a starter. And it was McDonald who kind of unprompted had to say, hey, let's not assume it's going to be Haynes because we're letting Laumea compete. Now, there's a couple of different layers to this, right? And that's why I wanted to get into this, because it's easy to go first to a place of skepticism, cynicism, negativity, because we've just seen a history here of swings and misses by this front office when it comes to drafting offensive linemen. And so I went back and looked again to remind myself, and I just took 4th round and higher. It's pretty common to find offensive linemen that go on to have really good NFL careers on day 2, sometimes early day 3, not as common later in the draft. And so I wanted to focus more on that, right? We've even heard John Schneider himself say that they draft for need specifically later in drafts, but early they stick to their board. And so I thought it was important to kind of whittle it down to just the first 4 rounds. By my count, John Schneider has had a hand in drafting 14 offensive linemen from the 4th round or higher. Here's the list. Russell, fairly in reverse chronological order: Russell Okung, James Carpenter, John Moffitt, Justin Britt, Terry Poole, forgot about him, Mark Glowinski, Reese Odiombo, Jermaine Ifedi, Ethan Posick, Phil Haynes, Damian Lewis, Abe Lucas, Charles Cross, Christian Haynes. And really, if you look at that list, there's only, by my estimation, 4 that were just absolute busts, right? John Moffitt in the 3rd round just wasn't committed to football, walked away from it after 3 years. Terry Poole, forgot all about him. If you'd asked me about Terry Poole, I would have remembered the name. I might have told you he was an undrafted free agent. Forgot he was a fourth rounder. He became nothing. Reese Odiombo, same thing. Really couldn't stay healthy. Injuries were his issue, but he was a guy that Tom Cable loved. One of his projects out of Boise State just didn't work out. And then Phil Haynes, same kind of story as Odiombo. Showed some flashes. There were times that he was given a chance to compete for starting jobs. He just couldn't stay healthy. And then there's kind of a second tier of guys who played, who carved out really good NFL careers, but played their best football for other teams. You know, James Carpenter didn't sign a second contract here, ended up playing more guard after he left. Justin Britt had to be moved around 3 different positions, failed as a right tackle, failed as a left guard, finally got some traction as a center, played well there, and then went on to play some more good football at center. Mark Glowinski, Seahawks gave up on him really early and cut him, and he went on to Indianapolis and became a very, very good starter there. For a length of time. Jermaine Ifedi's still kicking around the league, but he had to kick inside the guard, never really fulfilled his first-round potential. Ethan Posick, similar story to Britt, got moved around a lot, ended up settling in at center, has played his best football for the Cleveland Browns after he moved on. Damian Lewis started from day one as a rookie, put a really good career together for 4 years. We don't know if the Seahawks made any attempt to sign him or not, but he signed a big contract, moved on this last offseason to Carolina. Abe Lucas, we know how good he has been, but he's been battling those injuries, just now kind of healthy again. And then Charles Cross, jury's still out on him. Good player. Don't know if he's ever going to be that all-pro we were hoping he would be, being a top 10 pick. And then Christian Haynes, the third rounder this year. It's interesting to me, and I want to start this way. Let's go with the bad, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap it up with the good stuff, right? Because a lot of the reaction I saw from you was another failure. He's a bust. What a waste of a third-round pick. Let's get into that. So here's kind of a list of 4 points I put together of what's bad about this news, this development. First of all, it just causes me once again to ask, like, what is the issue with Christian Haynes? What's he lacking to convince this coaching staff that he deserves to be out there every play? We heard, when he was drafted, it was Seahawks got a steal at 81. Like, the draft world consensus was this guy was a second rounder on most boards. And most of these analysts were surprised that he went in the third round. Many of them, some of the most reputable draft analysts out there, said that Christian Haynes was the best pure right guard in the entire draft. Some of the other guards drafted ahead of him were guys that could play multiple positions or were tackles that were projected as guards. Tons of starts under his belt, right? Good enough athlete. But he keeps getting passed over, right? He was given the chance to compete with, well, first of all, the first kind of hint that he wasn't going to hit the ground running and become an immediate impact starter was in the offseason when Anthony Bradford was injured. It was McClendon Curtis that was running with the first team at right guard. So Haynes couldn't immediately establish himself as the second choice at right guard even back then. Then when Bradford came back healthy, they let him compete. Ultimately, Bradford won the job. And Bradford gets hurt. McDonald announces Laumea is going to compete with him and then announces on Friday that he's going to start. It's understandable why you could look at this and be disappointed. I am too. You want your third-round picks to make an impact right off the bat. We saw Dominic Pooney, drafted just a few spots behind Haynes out of Kansas, go to, or Kansas State. Kansas or Kansas State? Tell me in the comments, which one? Went to the San Francisco 49ers, started from day one, looks like a really viable starting guard. And there were other guys taken later on too. Mason McCormick, a guy that I really liked out of South Dakota State last year, starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was drafted much later. What is it, right? And we'll dive in here in a minute to some of the scouting reports. The next point, if Laumea is this good, why didn't he get a shot at left guard when Laken Tomlinson was struggling mightily the first 5-6 weeks of the season? He's been better, Still puts a couple of horrible reps on tape every game. And I know they value his veteran leadership on what is now an even younger line than it was at the beginning of the season, now that Connor Williams has moved on. So why wasn't he given a chance to compete then if he's this good, right? Also, another point of concern that's understandable is just when you think we're going to get some continuity in that offensive line, a position group that requires more continuity, I could argue, than any other. These guys need to play together, learn each other, learn how they're going to react to stunts and twists and blitzes and make sure that they get the calls right. And once again, right when we think, hey, this might be the group for the rest of the year, and 4/5 of the group, perhaps, that we could look forward to having back next year, and yet again, we're putting another guy in there. And now they all have to learn each other. Because Laumea hasn't run a whole lot of reps between Olu Oluwatimi and Abe Lucas up until this week. What impact is that going to have on their performance? And then the biggest question, the biggest concern on people's minds, and mine as well, did the Seahawks miss on their third-round pick? Did they whiff? Let me show you the good news. What I see as potentially good things about this move, and then we'll kind of compare and contrast. The more options, the better. I have talked all season long about how this year is about checking boxes, finding out what you have that you can count on and move forward into 2025, and are going to be part of this, part of the solution, part of the winning, part of the foundation. And so if they believe that Sataoa Laumea gives them a better chance to win right now and can be a better player right now than Christian Haynes, then good. It means that he's talented, right? You want as many guys on your roster as possible that make a case for playing time. The next point, the moves the Seahawks coaches have made so far, the kind of dramatic or drastic, significant roster changes that we've seen them make, so far have been good. They've worked, especially look on the defensive side of the ball, right? It's remarkable how good that inside linebacker play has been since they traded for Ernest Jones, moved on from Jerome Baker and Terrell Dotson in about a 3-week stretch. Brought in Ernest Jones, installed the rookie Tyrese Knight at the other linebacker. It's worked. It's transformed that defense. Kobe Bryant keeping his starting job that he earned while Rayshon Jenkins was hurt. That's been huge. Josh Jobe becoming the starter essentially in those 3 cornerback sets ahead of Trey Brown. Someone who'd been here, someone who had a higher draft status, making more money. The moves that the coaches have made in those areas have been the right ones. And so let's give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here. If they're that convinced that Laumea is a better player, let's find out. He played at a bigger level of competition, which might help explain why he was ready before Christian Haynes. Starting for 4 seasons at Utah, 2 at right guard and 2 at right tackle, he made all conference at both spots. Much higher level of competition over a 40-45 game resume than playing at Connecticut. And so even though Christian Haynes put all that good stuff on tape to get scouts to believe in him and had a good week at the Senior Bowl, at the end of the day, it's just not as big. It's not as high of a level of competition. So he might just not have been as pro ready. And then the good news potentially could be, hey, you want to focus on how they might have whiffed on a 3rd-round pick? How about maybe they hit on a 6th-round pick? What if Sataoa Laumea grabs this position and never lets go? That's tremendous value to have a starting interior offensive lineman, a good one, on a 6th-round rookie contract for 4 years. Tremendous value. Could really allow you to go out and get aggressive in maybe filling the other guard spot with a veteran in the offseason if you need to. It's, the comparison between them is fascinating as well. What we keep hearing about Haynes is lack of functional strength and doesn't have ideal length and size to play guard. here's a little bit of what was said, and I always defer to NFL.com and Lance Zierlein and the draft analysis he does for NFL.com. He's been doing it for a very, very long time. And so I tend to defer to his capsules and his write-ups because they're very consistent. And some of the things that he says about Christian Haynes. 4 years of starting experience, plays a clever brand of ball. He's compact and powerful through his upper body. Understands angles, gets into blocks with a strong desire to move and finish his opponent. We hear about how physical he likes to play. Good technique on pass sets. Some of his weaknesses, size and length fall below starting standards in the league. Although Zierlein had Haynes as a second or third round draft pick. Size and length fall below starting standards in the league. He's 6'3", 317 with 33-inch arms. Sataoa Laumea is 6'4", 319 with 33-inch arms. He's an inch taller and 2 pounds heavier with the same length of arms. Their athleticism's about the same. They both benched 25, 26 reps. Haynes had a little better vertical. Their broad jump was about the same. Really interesting. Now, some of the things about Laumea. Intent to get his feet and hips in place to seal off backside blocks. Uses independent hands to push run defenders out of the lane. He's fluid to the second level. Upper body power to collect and neutralize defenders into his edge. Doesn't say anything about length or size issues. I think sometimes there's a perception, maybe because he played tackle. Maybe he just looked longer. I don't know. It just sounds like he might just be more ready to play today. And here's what I'll say about this. Players develop on their own timeline. Not everyone is who they're going to be initially. And some of you, when I said that on Blue Sky and Twitter, came back and said, hey, he's 24 years old. He's one of those older prospects, right? Doesn't matter. Again, he's jumping from the University of Connecticut. What do they play in? What conference is that even? It used to be the Big East, but that level of competition to the NFL now, it's a different ball game. Some of those guys make the jump right away. But like Mike Jarrell is another good example. Came from Findlay in Ohio, really small school. I mean, we're talking Division II there, right? At least Connecticut's Division I. And we saw as big and strong and athletic as he is, 4-year starter, lots of experience, all those same attributes. He was physically over and psychologically, mentally overwhelmed at times by the speed and power of the NFL game. Doesn't mean he's not going to end up being a good player. Hell, Mike Jarrell could end up being our long-term right tackle. There is that upside. Guys develop on different timelines, right? Back when Mark Glowinski was here, they didn't think enough of him and they cut him. He went on, became a Pro Bowler for the Colts. Don't give up on Christian Haynes yet. I still think there's a chance. And another one, I could have put this in the good column. What if we have found our 2 long-term starting guards? Because I don't think any of us question that Laken Tomlinson's not going to be on this roster next year, right? And I think as we go into the offseason, wait and see now about Abe Lucas and whether he can come out of these last 6 games fully healthy. Hopefully more than 6 games, right? If he's someone that they can count on moving into next year with that knee, that as we start to check boxes, 6 weeks ago, if we had a conversation about 2025 and what we saw on the offensive line, we'd probably think we need 4 new guys. You got Cross at left tackle. Regardless of what you think, how good you think he is, he's solid. He's definitely a player they want to try to extend and keep around and keep some continuity there at left tackle. Oluwatimi has been kind of a revelation at center, taking over for Connor Williams after he retired. He's been an upgrade and looks like an everyday starter. Lucas has been healthy. Wasn't even talked about this week. I think that's the best news about Abe Lucas. Reporters aren't even grilling McDonald with questions. How's he feel this week? How's he recovering? How's he bouncing back? How's his pain level? They've been managing his practice time, but he's good to go. Now 3 games in. That's great news. So what if that box is checked again? Abe Lucas is back in 2025. And now you have Sataoa Laumea and Christian Haynes. What if between the two of them, those are our starters? And you're set long term. Still wouldn't prohibit you from going out on the market and trying to sign an outstanding veteran that you think could be an upgrade, or if you just feel like you need that older player. But man, I'm telling you, and this is what I said early in the season, like don't judge, this whole John Schneider is negligent in how he's put this offensive line together early in the season. I would push back on that a little bit and say, let's wait and see about this current group, because they went out and drafted 3. What if they found their 2 guards? I haven't given up on Christian Haynes yet. You shouldn't either. And I just kind of wanted to give that its due, right? Its time and place. This episode sponsored by BetterHelp. 'Tis the season to take stock of the year, right? We always look back and how did I do? Take stock of your life, where you're at in life. Are you doing the things necessary to become your best self? Well, if you've ever considered therapy, now you can do it from the comfort of your own home on your own schedule with BetterHelp. It's completely online. You fill out a brief questionnaire, they match you with a licensed therapist. If you don't like that therapist, you can get another one at no additional cost till you find the fit that you want. And right now you can get your first month for 10% off at betterhelp.com/forever. That's BetterHelp, HELP/forever for 10% off your first month. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. And the clock is ticking on Doer's Black Friday Cyber Monday sale. Doer is lifestyle apparel built for doing. And my favorite item in their line is their stretch denim, made from antibacterial and sustainable materials. These things are built with 20% stretch, and they're built to last. They are incredibly comfortable. And right now, during this sale, you can get these jeans for up to 50% off. Head on over to shopdoer.com/forever. That's shopdoer.com/forever to take advantage of these Black Friday Cyber Monday deals through December 2nd. All right, this is going to be fun. So earlier this week, I put up this graphic. I'll put it up again so you can see it. And it posed the question, which player from the Seahawks past, in their prime, of course, if you could transport back in time and kidnap them and bring them to 2024 and put them on this roster, would help this team the most? Marshawn Lynch, Walter Jones, Steve Largent, Cortez Kennedy, Bobby Wagner. I knew how this was going to turn out, and I knew y'all were going to be wrong. And so now I'm going to tell you why. The results of the poll lined up almost exactly with the results that many of you answered the question just in notifications to me and directly to me. And it lined up almost exactly, went and tallied it all up. Y'all said Walter Jones, and I knew why you would. I knew why you would. Because it got a lot of comments like this. This offensive line is in need of the most help. He's one of the greatest of all time. He would upgrade this line. There's no question, no brainer. It's a no doubter. There's no other answer. I got a lot of that, right? A little bit of process of elimination. I didn't think Steve Largent was going to do very well. He only got 1% of the vote. Bobby got a very low percentage of the vote as well. Cortez Kennedy with 8%, Marshawn Lynch 14%, Walter Jones 77%. The overwhelming winner. You're wrong. 77% of you are wrong. The right answer is Marshawn Lynch. And I think the reasons are pretty simple. We just spent a lot of time talking about offensive line, right? And we've been talking about offensive line for years. The one thing that we can all agree on, that we have in place moving forward, is a pretty darn good young left tackle in Charles Cross. He's your best player on the offensive line. And yeah, even though we had hoped by this time that he would ascend to all-pro status, Albert Breer, when he saw him in preseason, said he thought he was kind of playing at that level and might have a chance to ascend to that. He hasn't. Maybe he's held back somewhat by Laken Tomlinson struggling next to him and just the entire group struggling a little bit. But there's times we've seen it in the last few weeks. He's just flat out gotten beat in ways that you don't really want to franchise left tackle to. But he's your best player on the offensive line. And he's young and ascending. He's not the problem. So even though Walter Jones is a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest left tackles ever to play the game, if you put him in to upgrade the one spot on your offensive line that's already pretty good, how does that make you better? How does that make the right side better, which is where most of the problems came from? And still today, we're trying someone new at right guard. That doesn't make sense to me. And then we talk about this running game and how much it struggled. And we see these reps on tape now. We're seeing it now every week after the game. These people that post all 22 clips. And we hear Mike McDonald and Ryan Grubb say, we can see on tape the pieces are coming together. We're almost there. We're just not there yet. What we see on tape are plays that are blocked pretty well sometimes. And Ken Walker doesn't trust the hole, doesn't stick his nose in there. He's bouncing things outside, which, sometimes he does to great effect. We love that about Ken Walker. But he's not sticking his nose in there and focusing on following where the blocks are supposed to be north and south and breaking some of these runs. Marshawn Lynch would make a mediocre to bad offensive line look better. He did during much of his time here, right? We saw the offensive line start to disintegrate as a unit after the Super Bowl wins, when Lynch was still pretty damn effective for a couple years after that. And I think he would be on this line. I think some of those 1 and 2 yard early down runs would be 4 and 5 yard runs. I think this team would be much better on 3rd down and 4th down. The Rams game, when they went forward on 3rd and short and 4th and short and got stuffed, wouldn't happen with Marshawn Lynch, most likely. I think he would pose more of a threat. I think he would bring out the play action game more. The Seahawks might even go more under center with Lynch. I think these 60, 70-yard rushing games we have might be 100, 110, 120-yard rushing games. I think the upgrade you would get from a prime Marshawn Lynch on this team, and don't forget his contributions in the pass game either, would far outweigh upgrading the best spot already that you have on the offensive line. The one honorable mention answer that I got a lot of, and I do agree with, is there's an argument to be made for Tez. Because the one thing right now that this defense lacks is that true nose tackle. We've talked about this. We're going to talk about it a lot in the offseason, going into the draft and free agency, hopefully maybe finding another guy like that. So Byron Murphy doesn't have to play nose full time, and he can move around a little bit and play some 3 technique. I think for his career arc, that's going to make him much more effective. And I think that's going to be an intention of this coaching staff and front office heading into the offseason. I think we'll be finding a guy like that. You put Tez in there with Murphy and Leonard Williams and then Mafe and now Nwosu coming back next week on the outside. Are you kidding me right now? You can make an argument there that, hey, if you can't upgrade the one position, right? If Steve Hutchinson, a lot of people wrote in Steve Hutchinson, but he wasn't an option. He wasn't on this board. He would have maybe won the poll. I think if Hutchinson had been an option, I think even many of you that voted Walter Jones might have said Hutchinson. Because, Hutchinson over Tomlinson, come on. Between Cross and Oluwatimi and an improving right side, now you might be talking about something. That was fun. I love stuff like that. That's really cool. And I'll try to throw some more of that stuff at you. Certainly when we get into the off season, we have a lot of those discussions, right? About past guys and perfect rosters and things like that. Shout out to BetUS and all of the sponsors of the program. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell button for notification of future episodes. All the other ways you can support the channel are linked down below. If you haven't checked out my Jets preview with the host of Bubs on Sports, man. He's great. One of the really, really good young content creators out there. Really great discussion about what he sees in this Jets team. A lot of you are nervous that it's a trap game. I was getting nervous about it as the week went on. I'm less nervous about it after watching Mike McDonald's press conference yesterday. I thought his tone was exactly what you need it to be heading into a game that you might think is one that they're overlooking for some bigger things down the road. The Seahawks can't overlook anyone right now, and you can't underestimate an opponent because everything's falling apart for them off the field, right? Still Aaron Rodgers. It's still all those dudes on defense, and Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner and C.J. Mosley and DJ Reed. It's still, you got a lot to contend with there. It's still Breece Hall, right? You have a lot to contend with there. Aaron Rodgers, even though he might not be the Aaron Rodgers he used to be, still a guy that can beat you. So check out the preview. I'll link it down below. But also, I'm going to do a live watch party during the game, so join me for that. Follow me on Blue Sky and Twitter at Seahawks Forever. I'm Dan. Appreciate you watching and listening to the show forever and always. Go Hawks.